Hello everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zeng. Today we have some more updates on Shanghai and an important theory on why the CCP is so dead set on its inhuman zero-COVID policy. Then we will talk about how this policy will probably become long-term, how strict control will become a new norm for China, and how this will affect foreign companies and ordinary Chinese people. First of all, a Shen Yun video. As you just seen from the video, from this Thursday on, Shen Yun will be performing at New Jersey Performing Arts Center. If you live in New Jersey or New York, please do take your family and friends there. Such a wonderful show, not to be missed. Buy tickets from shenyun.show/Jennifer-Zeng and you will save the handling fee. I plan to go once again, so if you go, maybe I'll see you there. Now, let's go to Shanghai. In our last show, we already said that internal meeting notes showed that the CCP was preparing to announce that the goal of zero COVID in Shanghai will be achieved soon. This piece of news is confirmed by Reuters as well, and which says that Shanghai has set a target to stop the spread of COVID-19 outside of quarantine areas on April 20th, that's tomorrow. And this will allow the city to further ease its lockdown and start returning to normal life as public frustration grows. The report also talks about the turning point, which the Police Secretary of Shanghai's Baoshan district said would arrive on April 17th. By turning point, I think he meant the point when the case numbers started to drop. And this is the chart of case numbers. We do see a drop in case numbers on April 17th, when 2,471 new cases were reported. But the number jumped to 3,048 again, or 84 again on April 18th. So maybe a few more days are needed to see whether the case numbers will continue to drop and whether April 17th can be called a turning point. So far, I haven't seen any official reports from the CCP indicating that the lockdown in Shanghai will end soon or as soon as tomorrow, April 20th. Instead, this morning, Xinhua published 2 articles to stress how important the zero-COVID policy is and how we should stick to it. This article says, adhere to the dynamic zero-COVID policy. Don't hesitate, don't waver. Achieve the goal of zero COVID at the social level as soon as possible. When the CCP says zero COVID at the social level, it doesn't mean that zero viruses or zero COVID. It means zero COVID patients in a certain area of the society. For example, after they take all the infected people in Shanghai to other cities, they can declare that Shanghai now has zero COVID at the social level. And this article, also published at Xinhua this morning, says that the CCP's pandemic control practice is based on its values, and its values are putting the people and the people's lives first. The people and the people's lives are the CCP's first priority. That's why a strict zero-COVID policy must be upheld all the time, as that is the best choice, and only this method can minimize the number of infections. However, this article also says that scientific, precise, and optimized dynamic zero-COVID measures are needed. At the same time, COVID prevention is a long-term matter and needs overall coordination. And Ma Xiaowei, the director of party and party secretary of China's National Health Commission, wrote an article in its official media on April 18th to clearly oppose the concept of coexisting with the virus, calling that a wrong thought. He said, we need to resolutely consolidate the hard-won victory of pandemic control, stick to the dynamic zero-COVID policy to welcome our party's 20th National Congress with our actual actions, etc. So he directly connected the zero-COVID policy with the CCP's 20th National Congress. From this, we know that for the CCP, this so-called pandemic control has really become a political movement instead of a medical event, and it could become the new norm of China, at least until the CCP's 20th National Congress finishes. A popular Chinese language YouTuber, also a good friend of mine, Mr. Jiang Feng, presented an important theory in his show about why the CCP had to stick to its zero-COVID policy no matter what. He said, this has a lot to do with the CCP's fear of being held responsible for the spread of the virus. Whether the virus is man-made or not, it definitely came from the Wuhan lab. So many people have died because of the virus. So some countries, organizations, and individuals have filed lawsuits against the CCP for the spread of the virus. The CCP will definitely go bankrupt if it is held responsible. However, if the CCP sticks to its zero-COVID policy and suppresses the numbers of China, it can say that the virus itself doesn't do that much damage. See, not many people died in China. If so many people died in your countries, that's your own problem because you failed at controlling the pandemic. So it's not our fault, it's your own failure. Don't blame us, etc. So that's the real reason why the CCP is dead set on its zero-COVID policy. Do you agree with this theory? Leave us a comment and tell us. In the past few days, another piece of news has drawn a lot of attention. The CCP's media reported that Chinese Vice Premier Sun Chunlan visited Menghua Street in Shanghai to inspect and guide the local pandemic control on April 15th and 16th, and this is a screenshot of that TV report. However, photos taken from higher angles show that Sun Chunlan was not visiting a street, but instead, she's visiting a Hollywood-style film studio on top of a high building. So I did some research myself and found this picture of a famous restaurant on the street that Sun Chunlan was supposed to be visiting. look at the wooden bar wall of the restaurant. And this film studio on top of that high building also has very similar wooden bars, right? So I'd say the designer of the studio on the rooftop did have done some homework. However, the fact that the CCP faked a piece of news is not news, actually. The real news here is who shot the photos from higher places, probably with a drone, and released those photos for people to realize that Sun Chunlan didn't visit Menghua Street at all. Obviously, whoever did that just wanted to embarrass Sun Chunlan and Xi Jinping, as Sun was sent to Shanghai by Xi Jinping. So again, power struggles are very real in Shanghai. I think Xi's iron fist policy has met with strong resistance in Shanghai like never before. The resistance not only comes from the public, but also from local officials. These are a few banners put in Shanghai. The top left one says, "We oppose unlimited lockdown." The top right one says the content cannot be viewed because it violates laws and regulations. This is a satire of the CCP's content censorship. The bottom left one says people are dying, and the bottom right one looks like the other side of the bottom left one, and it lists a number of non-COVID death cases in Shanghai during the lockdown. And these are some notes put up on the doors by the residents themselves, all declaring that they refuse to do more COVID testing. They said, "We've done antigen tests ourselves. The result is negative. No more nucleic acid testing." A while ago, there was a 20-minute audio file leaked on the internet. It was a phone conversation between an angry Shanghai man and a CDC officer in Shanghai. The man got a call from the CDC, which said that his father had tested positive and needed to be taken away for quarantine. The man said the test results from Shanghai's health cloud system showed that his father tested negative. Why are the results different? The female officer not only admitted to the man that the test result of the health cloud system was faked, but also gave advice to the man about how he could stop his father from being taken away. She said, "You ask for a positive test result. If they can't show you one, you can refuse to go with them. If they insist, you can call the police." She also said, "Don't let your father be taken to the Fangchang hospital. Those places are terrible." Obviously, she was very sympathetic to this man. She also said, "As professionals, we knew very well how to deal with the pandemic. However, the government never heeds our professional suggestions." After learning that the man was recalling what she said, she expressed anger at first. But as she continued to talk with the man, she became more angry with the higher authorities. At the end, when the man asked her what ordinary residents could do, she said, "You put what I said online." Well, this brave CDC officer asked the man to put up what she said online. I guess that's how the audio file ended up spread on the internet. There are other stories of members of resident committees all resigning and refusing to continue to work for the CCP. There are also several lawyers in the community organizing themselves and taking over the management of the building from the officially recognized resident committee. It turned out that they managed the community much better than the CCP's resident committee. So these are all things that had never happened in other cities in China. But no matter what has been happening in Shanghai in the past month has totally smashed its image, as well as the kind of pride that was very unique to the people of Shanghai before. This morning, I saw a most heart-wrenching story shared by this woman. She said in the video that she was a social worker. She looked after an elderly lady who lived alone. She went to cook for the lady every day. After the lockdown, she couldn't go anymore. Then on March 30th or 31st, she was temporarily allowed to go out to do some shopping before another round of planned lockdowns. So she used this opportunity to pay a visit to that elderly lady. Upon entering the door, she smelled something terrible. Then she found that the elderly lady had just eaten feces. As she was too hungry, she didn't want to starve to death, but she died all the same. She starved to death on April the 8th. Now I'll show you a video that shows cattle also starved to death after being trapped on a highway because of the lockdown. A while ago, I read a story of a truck driver starving to death after being trapped on the highway for 20 days.
看看这位卡油拉的牛，堵车堵的有2颗蛋饿死掉了都。
So cattle starved to death. The next video shows food being thrown away. Yeah.
几万箱的。 被丢进垃圾桶了。
You might wonder why they throw precious food away when people are starving to death. I think there are two possible reasons. One, because of the lockdown, there are not enough people to deliver the food. It had to be thrown away after going bad. It was all fresh food that cannot last long. Two, there are some people running black markets and making huge money during the lockdown. If you have connections with the resident community, you can sell food in that community at whatever price you ask. If people have free food, nobody will buy it from the black market. There are indeed people boasting about how much money they just made by selling food on the black market. I heard many foreign companies as well as Chinese people are planning to leave China for good after the lockdown finishes and when they are free to leave. Now let's watch another video. I must admit that every day I learn something new from China. If you are stuck inside a truck for days because of COVID-19 lockdown, what can you do if you need to use the restroom? Listen to the woman's wonderful advice at the end of the next video.
不能让下车。吃饭怎么做的？吃饭给你买好点上要吃的，给你送过来，4菜1汤。行啊，那反正上厕所都行。上厕所把脸蒙上，屁股朝外。没有。
Well, did you get what she said? I felt too embarrassed to repeat what she suggested. If you didn't get it, you can go back and watch the video afterwards. So these are some words left by a Westerner at a quarantine site or a Fangchang hospital in Shanghai. Obviously, this foreigner was also detained there. COVID prison 2022, he wrote. I guess this foreigner would want to leave China, this COVID prison 2022, after he was released. So people are predicting that after the lockdown in Shanghai finishes, there will be a huge exodus of people leaving China. Well, that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching. Please do help me spread the messages or to go to my website at jenniferzengblog.com to sign up for a membership or make a donation. Thank you so much. See you next time.